is all very wonderful to hear you all get up in front and to share. And I also hope that you'll talk a little bit about the process as a template
Yes.
for leverage development.
I will do that. Okay. So I need that. Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Lucian. I'm with RT running the open source office there. And I'm also involved in LF Energy as board member. So after the overview of existing projects, we wanted to talk about new projects and what is the process to bring new projects on board. So as an example, I will discuss about the Digital Substation project. But maybe for those that are not in the Digital Substation business, don't worry, I will not go too much into the details, and there will be a table during the demo bazaar. But you can also think about how this process could be applied to other projects, other new projects. So, yeah, so this, in the architecture roadmap, we already added 3 potential candidates for new projects under LF Energy. So the substation, digital substation 1, fault localization management, and asset monitoring. First of all, I would like to talk a little bit about LF Energy's governance. So maybe you've already heard about that there are quite robust and proven governance rules under for a lot of Linux Foundation initiatives and projects. And this is based on the principle of splitting and separating the technical governance from the, let's say, business and strategic governance. So when it comes to technical governance and especially existing projects, so if you want to join an existing project, one of those that has been presented, these are based on 2 common principles in open source, which is open access and meritocracy. So you just have to identify contributors and join the project. And then you will gain experience, and then your reputation will grow, and you will take progressively leading roles in the technical life of the project. Now, when it comes to new projects, that's where being a member of LF Energy counts, because this is driven by LF Energy strategic governance, so both the board and the technical advisory councils. And when you are a member, you have seats there, and then you can say, okay, there are already projects that are interesting, but for my business, I need this. And then within this community, you can find other parties that have the same vision and try to also look after external parties to onboard them. And that's a process that requires membership, and that's what has been implemented for the Digital Substation project, for instance. So it has already been mentioned that there is also a process that was inspired by other LF initiatives to help open source projects to grow. So they start with, in the pre-inception phase, they start with working groups or special interest groups, and progressively, so then they become project proposals, hopefully, and then we have stages. Maybe they are not branded or named like that. You change a little bit the names of the various stages. All this is documented on LF Energy's GitHub, so if you go there, LF Energy on GitHub and /governance, you will find everything, and you could even suggest improvements to that process. So as I said, as an example, I will talk a little bit about the Digital Substation project. Yeah, so Digital Substation, briefly, and I will not spend a lot of time. So this graph here, scheme, shows the functions that we have currently in the Digital Substation. So what does it do? Well, you have measuring and metering functions, you have actuation, and everything, especially things that interact with high voltage equipment in the power substation. Then the digital substations provide some communication functions. So communication between equipment within the substation, but also communication with systems outside the substation. And these systems could be centralized, like SCADA systems gathering all the data into a control room, or they could be local ones, so having some kind of intelligent system that would act at the scale of an area, let's say 10 substations, for instance, etc. Inside the substation, we deploy automation and protection functions. So protection, what we call protection, is something that needs to usually act really fast because it's about ensuring the safety of people and assets. So for instance, if a lightning strikes a transmission line, you want to make sure that you disconnect everything before all the houses are burned or transformers are burned. And then in the substation, you will find some functions related to supervision, to configuration, and maintenance. So early this summer, RT came to LF Energy to announce that we would like to investigate an open source collaboration in this field. Why have we done that? Because we have running projects at RT to build the new generation of digital substation, but we believe that with open source, we could ensure the required level of modularity, interoperability, and scalability for this new generation of substations. And also, we want to do that in a cost-efficient manner because our budget, we cannot expand our budget, as I said briefly yesterday, and open source has proven to be able to provide leverage development that can save costs. Yeah, so here is where we are. So we are at the pre-inception stage, which means that there is no digital substation project form yet. So how are we working? After the call for collaboration, a few parties confirmed their interest in continuing the discussion with us, and we formed 2 design teams. So the purpose of the design team is to confront our respective roadmap and to see if there is a match. So if we can find a common ground to collaborate. At this stage, there is no commitment from the parties to participate to the project. So it will depend on the end result, and maybe the end result, hopefully the end result will be that all of the participants to the group have interest in a common roadmap, and then they will be part of a joint project. Maybe we will not achieve that. We'll see. So we formed 2 design teams. We will explain all this into details, and especially my colleagues during the demo bazaar. Just briefly, those 2 projects. The first one is closely related to specification. So what we want to do with the first project is to have an implementation of the current standard that we use for the digital substation, which is an IEC 61850 standard, and include in this project as well the development of some kind of common toolboxes for configuration, so that the stake here is to make sure that devices, equipment, software that we may have to buy from various vendors would be a bit more plug-and-play interoperable. And we realized that what comes from the standard is not plug-and-play interoperable. There is good interoperability at the communication layer, so that information can go from one device to the other. But then when it comes to understanding the meaning of a piece of information, there are slight different interpretations, for instance, from between vendors, etc. And with a reference implementation, we want to achieve a higher level of plug-and-play interoperability. It will not be like an USB port, I think. Not yet, unfortunately, but that's the direction we want to go. And then on this topic, I would also like to emphasize that we do not want to oppose standardization and this kind of open source project. Of course, where standards exist, we are happy to reuse this because it saves time, it saves discussions, and it's the best guarantee that the direction we are taking is not going in the wrong way. But drafting standards and agreeing on standards takes time, and sometimes we cannot just postpone the project for 5 years waiting that the standards goes forward. Reciprocally, we also believe that if RT does their own implementation of the standard, and then we come to the standard body, we maybe listen, but still it's only RT. If a small group of front runners implement the standard and go beyond, and then they come back to the standardization body, then they will be maybe able to contribute something and to help the standard also to move forward. The second project is a bit different. Here we want to follow the path of the telecom industry. The telecom industry, facing the challenges of the 5G and the need to scale massively their grid, they decided to go to virtualization. So previously they had to buy network functions as devices, and they decided to virtualize them because then deployment is faster, it's easier to upgrade, you can save maintenance costs, etc., etc. And it's a bit the same in our business. So we would like to virtualize some functions, to have them virtualized in the substation. What we want to achieve with this project is to have an open source common platform that could run virtualized automation and protection functions. I'm not saying that protection functions and automation should be open source. It's just having this open platform we think it's the only way to have a platform that is interoperable with all vendors. And we want to avoid a situation where we have virtualization, but if we have 3 vendors in a substation, we need to run 3 virtualization platforms in parallel because they have different standards. What projects are coming next? So, as I already mentioned, we have already flagged those 2 topics. I will not discuss them today because they are quite early stages, like many ideas, and they need to be elaborated a bit further, but I would say that it may also depend on your projects. So if you have projects that are not in the current roadmap, and even not in a grid operator's roadmap, but then you see benefits to collaborate with open source, please join, bring your own projects, become member, and push them. Thank you.